Wow, we're joined by Neil Fallon. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Backstage, about to rock Knotfest. What do you think of this show today?
It'll be good.
Seen the lineup?
Yeah.
You done shows with Slipknot before?
Yeah, it's festivals.
Yeah.
And they were kind enough to invite us to do this one, and it fell in perfectly with the rest of our tour. So
Yeah.
so
Did
here
you
we
do
are.
Aftershock yesterday?
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. I had my crew up there. I can't wait to hear about it.
yeah. It was a good one.
I went up there last year, but can't figure out how to clone myself to be at both festivals at once.
It was pretty damn dusty. My sinuses
what I hear.
Kicking my ass today.
That's what I hear. They said there was a half-inch of dust on everything.
Yeah, and it's all agricultural, like cow manure dust.
It's like a ranch.
It's the real good stuff.
Oh, man.
Rich in protein.
Yeah. Well, I know you're going 25 years strong, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing, amazing stuff. And I know you got more independence than ever. You're more in control of what you guys are doing. And amazing new album. Take us back, though, a little bit. What age did you start making music yourself, and who were some of your inspirations at that point?
My first guitar I got was probably 15 or 16, and did the same thing that everyone else did, tried to learn Smoke on the Water, play power chords.
Yeah.
I wish I had taken lessons and learned, music theory at that tender age when my brain was a little bit more pliable than it is now. But at that time, we were listening primarily to punk rock and hardcore and metal, and then but classic rock was always in the background because it's what we grew up listening to, all pervasive around us.
Yeah.
And when I think about the influences of Clutch, I can narrow it down to like DC hardcore with bands like Minor Threat and Bad Brains and Fugazi, DC Go-Go, which had a big part of John Paul's drumming. And also probably the local doom scene with bands like Pentagram and who else? Internal Void, Wretched. And those three things kind of made us what we are.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys have taken a lot of elements of a lot of different music and created your own sound. Why is it important to have some kind of deep and varied roots to your music?
Because you can get more out of it in the long run. I mean, if you paint yourself into a musical corner, it might seem fun when you're 21. But you want to do that for 25 years? I doubt it. I'm sure there's a lot of guys who just, grin and bear it because that's what they have to. But to actually, speaking for myself, to get joy out of this, I mean, like, you only get one life. Why would you, cherry pick, or paint yourself into a musical corner?
Yeah, why paint with the same colors?
Yeah, it's. I'd rather take a risk and fail than just rehash the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, especially as you're young, it feels like if you're with the pack, it's safe. But to go out on that tree branch all on your own seems pretty scared, pretty risky.
Yeah.
But really, ultimately, that's what all the great bands and artists do.
I think so. I mean, you might be able to garner a much more immediate response if you do something that's familiar for people, but it also goes away just as quickly.
Of course.
It's harder to build a fan base by doing something that's a little bit out there, but in the long run, I think those fans are much more dedicated.
Yeah. Well, like your cohorts, Mastodon here, they obviously are charting their own course. They did a great set last night, and I can't think of one other band that sounds like them.
Yep. We are very fond of those guys, both personally because we know them well, but musically, we've watched them go on a path. Even though it's a different kind of music, it's a similar thing to Clutch.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit on the margins of what's acceptable for the genre.
Yeah.
And you're going to get some really passionate responses in favor of that and some really passionate responses in disfavor of that. But that means you're doing something right, I think.
Yeah. You're causing a reaction, which is ultimately what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
A mediocre response is not going to elicit anything.
No, it's easily forgettable.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys have done so many great records, and of course, following up the Earth Rocker record, is challenging. You guys definitely hit your stride with that. What was the thoughts going in, to make the you know, the Psychic Warfare album? What were your goals with that?
Well, I think I bugged myself out a little bit at the beginning. You're thinking, well, what are we going to do different? What am I going to sing about different? How do we follow this up? And then I realized, you know, I didn't have that conversation going into Earth Rocker.
Yeah.
Why have it now? Music should come from the heart, not the brain.
Yeah.
And once I kind of realized that, it became much easier. There's a lot of similarities between these two records because I think there's momentum that carried over from Earth Rocker, but one thing that's different is that I think it's much more of a live. It sounds more like us on stage than maybe Earth Rocker does because we really rehearsed these songs before we recorded them.
Yeah. So more than ever, these were really road tested and rehearsed, and
if not road tested, we beat them to death in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, and for once, I actually wrote all the lyrics before we recorded it. You know?
Yeah.
There have been instances in the past where I wrote the lyrics the night before, and I always regret that.
Yeah. Second guess.
Yeah.
Now I know Machine, your producer, moved to Texas. What part of Texas is that now?
It's west of Austin in a town called Dripping Springs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of out there in its own little spot. So no distractions.
Yeah, it's nice. I think creatively, it's nice to be able to walk out of a studio and see the horizon line. A lot of studios are, you know, there's either no windows in it or you're in a urban environment where you only get this much sliver of sky. But to be able to look out the window and see the rolling Texas hill country was relaxing. It's good to be relaxed in the studio.
Yeah. And how long was the process? How long did this record take to record?
Let's see, 2 weeks of basic tracking, and then 2 weeks of vocals and guitar.
Okay.
Overdubs. So about a month of tracking, and then about another month of mixing, recalls, you know, redoing the remixes, and then the mastering. So beginning to end, maybe just over 2 months.
Sure. And again, being more in control of your own destiny, to kind of not have anybody telling you what to do or looking over your shoulder. What is the biggest advantage of that now? Kind of.
You can put out the records when you want to. That was one of our biggest gripes with labels. We would say we want to put out a record, and they would say, well, no, your album cycle isn't done. And now, you know, if something goes wrong, we know who to talk to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, it's more work, but like anything else in life, there's bigger reward for more work. And even though we may not sell as many records as some bands put on these major labels, we sell the right amount to the right people.
Yeah.
And there's no middlemen. And I don't understand why artists continue to sign multi-album contracts with major labels. It baffles me.
You're going to sacrifice something.
Yeah, I mean, not only financially, but it just, I don't know, maybe it's, I think, it's not easy to do these days, but you can get a distribution deal directly from a distributor. That's all you need.
I mean, then it just comes down to promotion, and touring's half of that.
Yeah, and in the world of social media, that's free. You know, a band could say, if a big band decides they want to announce something, all they have to do is write 100 some odd characters on Twitter, and you're done.
I mean, to give up your freedom, your ownership, your control, and most of the profits, I mean, it's insane.
Hey, I mean, I know both sides of the fence. I mean, to the 90s, we signed to major label contracts, and those records, I'll never see a penny from.
Of course.
You know, and it's shameful, but, you know, we learned our lesson. Usually bands are pressured into that from managers who are taking 20% off the top.
Yeah.
Like, take that advance, take that advance, take that advance, because they're going to get a chunk of it off the top.
A commission.
The band might say, oh, I got this amount of money, but your publishing and your master usage and your rights, bye-bye.
I talked to a guy recently, he figured out that he lost a potential $30 million in royalties for a $60,000 publishing check.
Sounds about right.
And that's you know, It's extreme, but that's a hell of an interest rate.
Yeah, and you know, and it's even more complicated now with things like Spotify, where you know the majority shareholder interest is owned by major labels, who it behooves them to put their entire catalog on Spotify. So yeah, sure, get a Spotify account. You listen to anything you want at any time you want. But the musicians, are you getting more chumped?
Yeah, how does that trickle down to the rights holder?
It doesn't. I mean, you would the millions of streams you would need to equate to something of significance
one
is
unit.
astonishing. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think of Spotify as like the bargain bin of music. Sure, we'll put our music out there eventually, but you know, we worked hard at this, and I believe the band should be compensated for it. And,
Of course. I mean, I'm all for keeping prices down. I know they've done a good job at these festivals here, and you know, I think CDs should be like $5, $6, $7, $8 myself. You know, but it's a whole ecosystem. You know, in the loop here, and music can't be free. Or the studios, the engineers, the video directors, the bus drivers, everybody starts to dry up.
Well, fortunately, I think Clutch fans, they understand that, and they are supportive of us.
Yeah.
And buy our records, buy our T-shirts, and sure, piracy is piracy. It's out there, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. But I kind of draw a big distinction between some kid who gets a free copy of the record to someone who's running a streaming service and just gaming everybody. You know, it's a big distinction, I think.
Yeah, these powers to be keep telling us it's a good thing, and I haven't.
For them, it sure is.
I haven't seen the proof. I think they're on the payroll is the problem.
Yeah, that's their talking points.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I know you've had some interesting collaborations. One was Soulfly. How did you hook up with Max, and how'd that go down?
One of the most career-changing tours that Clutch did was opening for Sepultura. We did two. One, Chaos AD in '94 here in the States. And then we did Roots in Europe, I think it was '96. And that kicked down a lot of doors for us. And then Max just emailed me, basically. And thankfully, we live in a day and age that he could send me files, and I could record it in my basement, send him the files back, and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's the long and short of it.
Two paths don't even need to cross.
Nope. I mean, it's sometimes it's nicer to have the real FaceTime, and you can vibe on it. But
it's nice to hang. But if he's over in this part of the world and you're over there, and
we all live in geography,
Yeah. What are some of the other collaborations that stand out to you that you've done? Because I know
we just did a thing called Teenage Time Killers. We're on tour with COC now, and Reed Mullen was sort of the grandmaster of that.
Right.
Corey Taylor had a track on that,
and
as it Randy Blythe, and I got asked to do it, and it was very flattering. We did a show, maybe just about 2 months ago out in LA.
Oh, the Fonda?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Wow. Anybody else on the bucket list you haven't collaborated with that one day you'd love to take a shot at?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think one of my favorite artists is Tom Waits.
Yeah.
I would love to do that just to see how the man works. But, that's more for selfish reasons than for realistic reasons.
Right. Most of your fans probably are wondering who the hell is Tom Waits, but it would be magic, I'm sure.
I would hope so.
Yeah. And I know you got a lot of life, on this album coming up. Tell us about the Decapitation Blues. I know that was influenced by the sci-fi author Philip Dick. Talk a little bit about that one.
Well, that song in particular had more to do with the surgery I had. I had a spinal fusion up here in my neck.
Yeah.
And after the fact, it turned out okay. I started thinking that at least for a couple of minutes I was, more or less decapitated. And it's quite astonishing what medical science can do these days. But it also bugged me out because when those things happen, you start thinking about your own mortality. And that it was sort of, I guess, my way of a little bit of black humor about it. And it also has to do with the notion that some of the disc replacements are from cadaver bones. And I started thinking about, whose bones are in my neck right now.
Wow.
It's kind of I don't dote on it too much. But after the fact, I felt a little bit intruded upon. But hey, better than the other options.
Yeah, that would be a curious one. Whose parts are part of me now?
Exactly.
That's amazing. Are there any other songs on the new record that you're most excited about, as far as what you achieved and it coming through how you wanted it?
I think Our Lady of Electric Light is a very different song for Clutch, and I'm stoked that the fans dig it as much as they do. We kind of went back and forth about where it should be on the record and should it be on the record, and it's a fun song to play because it is so different.
Sure. Well, I know after 11 studio albums now, you've got quite a catalog. Is there going to be any more collaboration with the company band?
You never know. I would hope so, but then again, I also know my world with Clutch is rammed. And
not a lot of downtime.
The free time that I do have, the most important thing for me is being a father.
Yeah.
And at this point, every free moment I have goes right there.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm sure some of those collaborations kind of recharge your batteries, but nothing like family life.
You only get one shot at that.
Yeah.
There's no, undo button.
That's amazing stuff. Now, all that you've seen through your years, what advice do you give to young creative people that would love to be doing what you're doing now? I know the business is hard to, consult them on, but as far as the creativity or the passion it takes to be a great songwriter and a, touring artist and really find your own style.
Well, I would think one, do not be distracted with all the baubles of technology. Facebook likes and how many followers and how many downloads you have on SoundCloud. None of that matters if your song sucks. And I think the best way to become a songwriter or even a performer is to get on stage. I think we have a tendency to think of as vinyl records as some old technology, or radio as old technology. They're not. They're brand new. When you compare it with live music has been going on for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years.
Cavemen beating on a drum.
If a solar flare if a solar storm hit Earth right now, you can say goodbye to all that shit, and everybody would go back to acoustic guitars and drums, and that you would bring it down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
I always remind myself of that and try to not get too distracted with all this but noise that surrounds it. You got to work at it. It's not easy. And if you think you're going to make a life out of this, you got to really ask yourself, are you prepared to go through the dark night of the soul, where you have to ask yourself what path? And unless you honestly love it, then the answer is no. Because if you question whether you love it or not, then it's not for you. Because it's a long road.
Yeah.
But hey, I love it.
Yeah, we came up in an era with no cell phones, no internet, no YouTube.
Sometimes it was great to be lost, not know where the hell you were.
Yeah, I miss those days of going into that neighborhood record store and being exposed to new music just organically through the guy behind the counter who had a passion for it.
There's something to be said about, being able to get obscure records now, with the push of a button, but it's almost just an embarrassment of riches. When you had $10, $15 and you had to decide what one thing you were going to buy, you were way more emotionally invested in it. Now, if you download 10 albums, click, 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 fast forward, click, click, click. It just makes it too cheap, I think.
Might not even
now I
listen
sound
to
like get off my lawn, you kids.
Yeah. I remember the passion of camping out, waiting to be the first one to get that new record, or camping out for the tickets because they were general admission.
And there was only that one or two, two stores within driving distance that did carry those kind of records.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a pilgrimage. to go to the cool record store that had that obscure metal record that you wanted or whatever.
Yeah. We're hoping that there's some balance between technology and creativity. So
the kids will figure it out. They always do. They really will.
Yeah. Well, again, Neil, we appreciate your time. Wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
We know it's going to be a very special show here in Southern California tonight at NotPass.
It's lovely.
Thanks again.
Thank you.